honored to be here, really. My father once told me before speaking to a big group that it is an honor to speak in front of your peers. Never forgot that, and thank you for having me. It's so cool to see everybody turning out for Richmond Creative. I know it's not just for me, but it's for this community, which I think is really getting some great energy. You can just feel it happening all throughout the city, not just in the ad business and the creative business, but also everywhere else, in the art business and the music business and school, and it's all related. So congratulations to all of you, because I know every one of you contributes in a big way to that inertia that we've started, right? So let's celebrate that whenever we can. So thanks. Round of applause for you guys. Come on. So it's not often that I get asked to talk about sound. In fact, I would say that I never get asked to talk about sound. I always get asked to talk about our work. It's funny, I would say that sound is this thing that is really the most underrated part of what we do. But I would also say it's the most important. When I think back to our work, and I'm going to show examples of sound and the importance of sound in our business through our work. I think that's the best way to see it. I think about sound because it touches you in ways that images can't, right? And I think what's great about sound is it goes directly to your heart when it's done right. And I think when you do that, when you communicate and touch the heart, there's nothing more powerful than that. Storytelling at its core, that's what we do, right? It may take different executions and different technologies and different ways to do it, but storytelling, when we do it right, really gets you right here. I had the honor of chairing the Cannes film jury this past year. After that week of watching all the great films in the world, it was so apparent to me that film still, in its way, is the most powerful medium, because it does this one thing. It touches you right here, and when it's done well, you can't avoid it. It just nails you. I watched a movie the other night called Jackie, a biopic of Jackie Kennedy. And you guys, I highly recommend this movie. It's Natalie Portman on screen for 90 minutes, basically, which is not a bad hook for a good movie. But it just grabs you so many times in so many new ways. And the sound, the music to this film is so powerful. From the first frame, you are just taken in by this music because it doesn't match what you're watching. And that is what sound does at its best. It surprises and takes you away in a place that you didn't think you could go. So I'm going to talk today about sound and how it's impacted our work. This quote is from Tom McElligott. And you guys don't know Tom McElligott probably, because Tom McElligott was pre-digital. You can barely find him online. But he was one of my first bosses. I see Cabell Harris here. Cabell worked for Tom. And in fact, that's when I met Cabell for the first time. We worked together at Shite Day, and Tom hired us at the same time. Tom was probably the best, I think still probably the best copywriter of the 20th century. And when I worked for him as a very young person with a mullet back in the late 80s, he said this to me: sound can be the difference between good and great. And it's so true. It's so true. I don't know how many times I see something that has the wrong music on it, but when the music is right on it, it just raises it up 10 levels. When you have a voiceover and you read it a certain way, but then you have the right voiceover on it, it just changes it, right? You guys know that. Sound, whether it's through music, voice, sound design, elevates work beyond the ordinary. I've seen some things that were ruined because the sound just wasn't right. And the sound could be so many things. I'm going to talk about 3 specific things. Music, obviously, voice, and sound design. Music by itself can be an incredible, incredible tool to communicate and grab you in the heart. And it's funny, I'm going to show examples today of how it connects with humor, how it connects emotionally, how it can be the idea. It can be the brand essence. I'm going to talk about how one voice can become the voice for the brand and seep into pop culture. And And I'm going to talk about sound design. And sound design is the magic alchemy of all these things coming together that the best movies like Jackie just get. They just nail every part of it. When you look at those Oscar winners of the best sound design, the best music, isn't it amazing when you are elevated into another level? But let's first talk about music. Oreo. When we started this campaign about 3 years ago, we had this idea of that every Oreo cookie is wonder-filled. When you give an Oreo cookie to someone, you are transformed and suddenly you become someone else. You're a little kid again. They're wonder-filled. And one way that we wanted to communicate that and connect with people was through music. So one of our in-house copywriters, Dave Muhlenfeld, is a world-class songwriter too. And he started writing songs. And the songs became the element that raised this campaign from just an ordinary cookie campaign to something that was very special. Along with animation, the storytelling, though, that Dave has brought to this campaign and to these cookies is phenomenal. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of the music that he's written, the song and the lyrics that he's written, and then added bonus to that to give it even more stickiness and give it even more PR and make it elevate it even higher was to recruit kind of second and third tier up and coming musicians. Owl City, Casey Musgrave, Shitty Bang, a few people like that, a few acts like that weren't quite there but have grown because of this PR for this particular brand. The first spot I'm going to show you is the first one we ever did, and it ran on one of the last episodes of Mad Men. It was a 90-second commercial. We only ran once, but it got a lot of attention.
Wonder if I gave an Oreo to the big bad wolf, how would the story go? Would he still go huff and puff, or would he bring those pigs cool stuff to decorate the deck he helped them build? Would they not get killed? Wonder if I gave an Oreo to a vampire in a creepy show. Would he not act so undead? Would he thirst for milk instead? I've just got this feeling that it might work out alright. 'Cause cream does wondrous things inside a chocolate sandwich dream. If I gave them to great white sharks, would they share them with baby seals? Would they call up a giant squid for a friendly meal? Wonder if I gave an Oreo. Wonder if I gave an Oreo. What if I gave an Oreo to you?
Thank you. What's wonder-filled about that is you can't stop singing it. And so we've done a dozen or so commercials using the same kind of structure, Wonder If. The next one I'm going to show you is a combination of music, film, and animation. And the voice in this, the singer, is Dave's daughter, Lola, who was, I think, 6 at the time.
Wonder if I gave an Oreo to my dad before he made me go off to bed. Could we stay up, tell jokes till we got hiccups, or read or draw or dance or just sit still? It could be wonder-filled.
Aw. So the campaign, again, sound, music, original lyrics. This next one is from the lyrics, are Dave's lyrics, and it was Shitty Bang, the rapper. Part of Oreo's mission is to appeal to a much younger audience, to introduce themselves to an audience that doesn't necessarily know them as the wonder-filled cookie. And this spot went a long way towards the younger, hard-to-impress millennial audience. We know who you are.
Oreo. I wonder if I gave an Oreo to all the people at the high school I go to. If I gave them to my friend in the hallway, would it keep an optimistic outlook all day? And if I gave them to the lady on the PA, would she take my favorite record, put it on the replay? Cause the cream does a wonderful thing. When it comes to wonder feeling, yeah, you know it's the king. You could twist it, you could lick it, you could dunk it in milk. Yeah, it's the little sandwich cookie and it's wonderful.
So just a very different, thank you. A nice format, a nice modular campaign idea that could spread its wings in so many different ways. I mean, that just feels so different than Lola's beautiful singing, but at the same time, it all comes together. The last one I'm going to show you is a quick little video we did capitalizing on a current event. You guys know that the best brands now don't just put things out in the world and expect people to go like, wow, that's really cool. You have to capitalize on current events and make yourself relevant constantly. And keep what we like to say is light a lot of fires and then pour gas on those ones that are really going to take off. So part of our effort with Oreo was to capitalize on things that happened during the year and put out a quick video using the music and try to bring attention to the brand and attach it to these kind of wonderful things that happen in the world. And this one was kind of special.
Wonder if we took this moment to celebrate all of the babies who came into the world today. Each one royal in their way, each one born to rule their mom and dad. You're here and we're glad to welcome you wherever your home may be, in London or Albuquerque, Sao Paulo, Singapore or Sydney. You all deserve your own royal fanfare. Every boy and girl, you wonder, fill the world wherever your home may be.
So that ran online right after the birth of the first royal baby. Very special little piece that Dave wrote and we could produce downstairs and animated downstairs with our crew. So sound, music can be a big element in a campaign idea, be a staple, along with the animation that you've seen and the music and the artists and that feeling of wonder-filled. Those three things working together is how that campaign works. Music can also be part of a script idea and become an execution within a long-running campaign. So you guys have probably heard about this client, a little one that we have at the agency that does a few things every year that you might see. That was a joke, by the way. A lot of work. So Geico's amazing, and what they do every year is they do about 5 or 6 different campaigns. And within those campaigns, we always like to capitalize on music, and especially pop culture music from the past. It's funny, when I see scripts and I go like, oh yeah, I remember that song, I hated that thing. And then the guys just bring it to life in a way that you didn't think possible. So they have done a great job, the team on Geico has done a great job of capitalizing on kind of former hits and bringing those to life in ideas that are very sticky and that people really love. The first one stars our friend Salt and Peppa.
Push it.
If you're Salt and Peppa, you tell people to push it.
Push it real good.
That's what you do. If you want to save 15% or more on car insurance, you switch to Geico. It's what you do.
I'm pushing it real good.
I think I'd never get tired of talking about the idea that Geico is selling car insurance, by the way. You kind of forget that. But our job with Geico is really simple, to get them in the top 3 consideration set. When you look for car insurance, that's what we know, that your behavior is to look for 3 quotes and then pick the one that you think is the best one. And so Geico's ask for us is to get in the conversation. And that's why we do this work that does its best to get in the conversation. This next spot, amazingly, the band that stars in it never had a #1 hit. But after this ran, this song became the #1 hit in Europe again, like 25 years later or something like that. This is great.
It's the final countdown. The final countdown.
If you're the band Europe, you love a final countdown. It's what you do. If you want to save 15% or more on car insurance, you switch to Geico. It's what you do.
Yeah, who knew that they would be back? Those guys, it was funny when we called them first, they were like, oh, what? Are you serious? And then they were like, once they saw the script and it took off, they were so thankful. I don't think they made any money in the last 20 years. Dave Muhlenfeld, who I talked about earlier, is this incredible songwriter, copywriter, and about 5 years ago, he introduced this idea to Free Credit Report of a band, a fictional band called the Free Credit Report Band. And if you guys remember this, I just wanted to bring it back because sometimes you can invent something like a band who produces these ridiculous pieces of music, and they become a cultural icon to the point where they were invited to like play at shows. Stephen Colbert had a famous quote about saying that he wanted to be like the Free Credit Report guys. And again, sound can take, and music especially, can take on so many forms in the creative ideas that we come up with. I always thought that this was a special idea because it was one of the first times that a brand invented a band to become their spokesperson and spokespeople. And I still think people really love what it tried to do.
They say a man should always dress for the job he wants. So why am I dressed up like a pirate in this restaurant? It's all because some hacker stole my identity. Now I'm in here every evening serving chowder and iced tea. Should have gone to freecreditreport.com. I could have seen this coming at me like an atom bomb. They monitor your credit and send you email alerts, so you don't end up selling fish to tourists in t-shirts.
Offer applies when enrollment in Triple Advantage.
Well, I was shopping for a new car. Which one's me? A cool convertible or an SUV? Too bad I didn't know my credit was whack, cause now I'm driving off the lot in a used subcompact. F-R-E-E, that spells free. Creditreport.com, baby. Saw their ads on my TV. Thought about going but was too lazy. Now instead of looking fly and rolling fat, my legs are sticking to the vinyl and my posse's getting laughed at. F-R-E-E, that spells free. Creditreport.com, baby.
Offer applies when enrollment in Triple Advantage.
I just have a quote about sound that when you're on a set, if you notice a sound guy, you're really having a bad day. The sound guy should be way in the background. We just released this film. So this is a complete shift to another kind of music. That kind of music that makes you cry. It taps into an emotional memory or a feeling that you have, and you can't help it but grab the Kleenex. We just released this film. If you're a horse lover, you're going to feel it, but it's pretty special. But I think it emphasizes that music, in this case especially, elevated this story. The film is beautiful, but what the sound and the music did was elevate it up to another level and made it this heartwarming thing that people are really attracted to. And I think it's going to be, it just came out yesterday, but I think it's a beautiful piece.
Well, take care of her.
I will. Thank you.
Hey, you mind if I take off?
Yeah, go ahead. Hope the little one gets everything he wants in the morning.
Thanks. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Well, Sam, maybe next year.
Hi, Sam.
That's it was for a cause, if you guys saw the hashtag at the end about adopting horses. Beautiful cause, and I know. No, the whole head fake. Show a little comedy, then duck in with a little tearjerker. Beautiful though, I think the casting, incredible. But that isn't the sound, like no voiceover, barely any audio outside of the music, and of course Sam's breathing and his presence, and then the little girl. I mean, that thing's ridiculous. I still get kind of choked up, and I watch it about 500 times. But that's the power of sound, power of music, right? It just grabs you, and you can't stop. Okay, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. So let's talk about another element of sound that I think is really important, and obviously voice is key to sound, and I think sometimes, and I'm show a couple examples, the voice is the thing that makes the idea in the campaign what it is. First campaign I'm going to show you is for Chips Ahoy. Kenan Thompson is an SNL alumnus, former, I think he was also on yeah, all of that. Yeah, so I watch that all the time. Kenan is a special voiceover talent. So when we found him and he agreed to do this, we knew that the campaign would go to another level, and it sure has. Very popular campaign. Again, with this millennial audience that doesn't know anything about Chips Ahoy, and it reintroduced the brand to them. So here's two spots, 2 15s.
Whatever your thing, your jam, your raison d'etre, do it with an exclamation point. Case in point, new Chips Ahoy S'mores flavored cookies with the delicious chocolate center and fudge and marshmallowy chips. It's like a camping trip in your mouth. Made with... Don't sorta kinda do it. Do anything worth doing with an exclamation point. We did with new Chips Ahoy red velvet flavored cookies. And hey, that turned out pretty good. It's a red velvet flavored cookie with cream cheesy flavored filling and chips made with...
Kenan's got the perfect made with voice, right? So again, it's like we had this idea of made with exclamation point, because Chips Ahoy has exclamation point, and made with don't live your life with a period, live it with an exclamation point. And Kenan's voice says that, like, right? He's not he doesn't say anything with a period. So that really worked really well, and I think the campaign again just elevated it to another level because of his voice and his sound. So Oreo again. has done some special things. This kind of went another way with the storytelling. Not so much about music, but it was about the voice. It's for the mini, Oreo minis. And a couple years ago, we did this commercial. And we found this voiceover talent on Voice Bank. We had zero money. We just auditioned, we put a script in, and you guys, I'm sure you've used this service, and we found this guy, and it was like, he has to be somebody famous. What's he doing on Voice Bank? And he, again, we had read it one way, and I think we tried it with a female, we tried it with an Englishman, we tried it with, different ages, and then when this guy came in, all of a sudden the film and the story became even more special. And this voiceover was out there just waiting for this script to happen and for this thing to come to life.
On a long stretch of road that starts here and ends there sits a store half the size of a truck, plus it's spare. Mel's Mini Mart is the name on the store, by far the most mini of any mini before. That may explain why, day after day, not one man, woman, or child would look Minnie's way. Not a soul ever stopped in for donuts or coffee or newspapers, batteries, bananas, or toffee, or barbecue jerky or cheese shaped like strings. Good thing, because Mel's Mart sold none of those things. What good, they all thought, would a mini mart be to an oversized trucker or family of 3, plus 4 friends and their cat? Not much good. Imagine that. Then one day it happened without any warning. A van stopped by Mel's early one morning. A father, a mom, and 2 pint-sized girls with the shiniest, silkiest, bounciest curls. What the family discovered that others had not was the secret inside this mini mart spot. See, Mel sold one thing, a treat oh so teeny, the smallest of Oreos, Oreo Minis. Oreo Minis are just what you'd think. They're like big Oreos that decided to shrink. And just to make sure you don't misunderstand, you can tell that they're minis if there's lots in one hand. So they filled up their van right up to the border, and the dad just so happened to be a reporter. In a flash, the news spread about minis worldwide. Now everyone knows how much good is inside. The moral remains. It's not how you're built, but what's deep inside that makes us all wonder-filled.
Thank you. Little tidbit about that story. That was shot completely in Richmond. Entire film with our talent, our incredible crews. The team presented that idea almost filmed in its entirety to the client. I was in the meeting. And Brig White, the art director, also happens to be a really special carpenter, built the original Mel's Mini Mart in his garage one weekend, and it sold the idea. So what I loved about that, what we like to say at the agency is in order for our clients to take something, we need to make it. We call it make and take. And it's worked out really well. When we can make something beyond just the script, it's really easy for clients to go like, I like that, can I have it? So we call that make and take, and that was a great example. Geico. The famous voice for Geico is that little lizard, the gecko. And when I first got to the agency many years ago, when I didn't have any gray hair, the gecko just kind of was born as a way to tell people about Geico. They mispronounced it, they didn't know what it stood for. Anybody know what it stands for? You guys know the story? But no one really knew how to say the name, and so one day one of our art directors had this idea of creating a little gecko, a little lizard, to remind people the name Geico. And for the first couple of years, we did a bunch of gecko spots that were at best okay. And then about 5 years into the campaign, a new writer and a new art director came onto the campaign and elevated the gecko to be more sophisticated, have a little more attitude, and have a new voice, a more Cockney voice, a little bit more chutzpah, if we can say that. And he the gecko then became even more lovable than he was before. It's interesting, the story about the gecko is that the way he is animated and the way he speaks is the voice actor that we discovered in London. And what we do before we shoot any gecko spot, we record his voice. And we don't just record his voice audio, we record him doing the audio in his booth with a video camera. And he acts out the scripts. We then send that film to the animators at Frame Store in New York, and they create the gecko based on this guy in London. Needless to say, he's making nice money, nice pounds. But it's all based on his movements and based on his voice. And what I think happened to this campaign, it went from okay to being the icon that everyone loves. In fact, if you poll a lot of people in America, amazingly, they think the gecko is actually real. He talks, walks around. I know. It's amazing. A lot of things amaze us lately about our country. But that one's always stunned me. Like people will actually think, oh no, he's CG. It's the power of advertising, I think, and it's also the power of the craft that's gone into this campaign. And Bob Maher, who's in the audience here from our place, has done a lot of these spots, and you have to embrace this guy as a real character to make the kind of commercials we have. So here's a couple. This guy's voice is real. The way he acts is based on a real person, and I think because it is that, it's become something much more special than it was before.
For over 75 years, people have saved money with Geico. Oh, sorry.
Here we go, from the top, and action.
For over 75 years, people have saved money with Gecko.
Cut it.
What did I say? Gecko. I said Gecko. Oh. For over 75 years...
Keep it together.
I'm good. For over 70... What are you doing there? Stop making me laugh.
Geico, saving people money for over 75 years.
Don't look at me.
He's real.
You wanted to see me, sir?
Oh, come on in. I had some other things you could tell people about Geico. Great claim service and a 97% customer satisfaction rate show people really trust us.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
Trust is key when talking about Geico. You gotta feel it. Why don't you and I practice that with a little exercise where I fall backwards and you catch me?
No, sir. Honestly, I don't think...
No, we can do this.
Oh, dear.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
That's a great example of the voice. The first voice we had, we weren't really sure. Was he English? Was he Australian? What was he? And then he just embraced this Cockney accent, this attitude, and it brought it up to another level. Just a great example of voice talent really lifting an existing character to another place. This was a pro bono effort we did recently, and what I love about this is how the sound design came together. So we were lucky enough to capture a great story, write a great story that stars a recognizable talent, and you'll see him, Thomas Jane. But then we got really lucky and we got Coldplay to donate a song. And then for extra special sauce, we got, what's his name, Will Arnett to do the voiceover. And what happened is that great thing, that great magic of all the sound, all the music, all the voice coming together into a great story that really has made a difference in a very important cause. This film was directed at those famously cynical, don't think they're gonna die people called millennial men. I'm sure you know some of them. So we created a guy that they could really relate to, and together with the sound, I think they really loved what we tried to say to them. In fact, the stats for this, the return on this film have been incredible. I'll share those with you after you watch.
This is a story about Coleman Sweeney. Coleman, in short, was an asshole. Everyone in his small town knew it. It wasn't that he tried particularly hard to be unpleasant. It just seemed to come naturally to him. Coleman felt like the whole world owed him something. which caused him to regularly ignore the rules of a decent, acceptable society.
Wow.
And he hated anything that got in his way.
Go, you got it! You got it, go! Go, go, you can do it!
And small animals. Even to children, he was an asshole. He was, as they say, born to it. But then, the strangest thing happened.
$3.
Something entirely unexpected. Coleman Sweeney died. A brain aneurysm. Well, subarachnoid hemorrhage to be more specific. And it came as he argued over whether extra fries should be included in a $1.99 early bird breakfast, which was a typical Coleman Sweeney play. It was then that Sarah found something completely unexpected. Coleman Sweeney had registered to be an organ donor. Nobody knew what caused Coleman to do it, but there it was, generous and majestic. And that was the day that Coleman went from asshole to hero. You see, his liver went to Stan, a father of 2. His heart went to Miranda Morgan,
Who here has been to this?
who went on to teach for 25 more years. And his tendons went to Staff Sergeant Donahue, who was able to walk again and would never need to be pushed across the street by his physical therapist. And in a moment of small world irony, his corneas went to his 82-year-old next-door neighbor so that she could finally see the crap that her dog made in the side yard and pick it up. Yes, in life, Coleman was a bona fide asshole. 365 days a year, 24/7.
Hey, baby!
But in death, well, let's just raise our middle fingers and shout, "Up yours, Coleman Sweeney. You're not an asshole anymore."
Powerful film. I think the sound, I just love the way it all came together. And those asshole men are responding to it, donating, checking the box at a record pace. Thousands and thousands of percentages higher than they were doing before we introduced the film. So it's nice when something like that really works to this really jaded audience. JFK Library is a pretty special client for us for many years. A couple years ago, we did a website, an experience online where we recreated the landing, the moon landing of Apollo 11, and we did it in real time. And I'm going to show the film, and then I'm going to talk about the sound, because it's online, the digital experience, sound is a special thing, and I want to talk a little bit about the story about how we came about the sound for this particular piece.
On July 16, 2009, exactly 40 years after Apollo 11, WeChooseTheMoon.org went live. Visitors to the site climbed aboard for a real-time recreation of the 4-day mission. Then at precisely 9:32 a.m. on July 16th, Apollo 11 took off again.
0, all engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
11 of the most important stages were portrayed vividly, just as they happened in 1969. And more than 100 hours of audio transmissions between Houston and the astronauts were heard just as they were heard 40 years earlier.
Yeah, Houston, Apollo 11 and gave us a magnificent ride.
Visitors could track their progress on a desktop mission tracker, and email updates alerted millions to key moments. Over 400 photos from the NASA archive and JFK Library could be viewed throughout the trip.
This is as good as another. That really is one, I'll tell you.
And 650 of the most interesting audio transmissions were rebroadcast via Twitter exactly 40 years after they were said. Until finally, just like in 1969, at exactly 4:17 p.m. on July 20th, 2009,
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
the world landed on the moon. During the 4 days, over 1.25 million unique visitors traveled to the moon, 30,000 followed on Twitter.
By the way, from the JFK Presidential Library is recreating every minute of the Apollo 11 mission.
Media coverage generated over 160 million impressions worldwide, including live coverage on CNN. And the event was picked up in countless stories in newspapers, websites, and blogs. Since launch, the site has received 3.5 million visits and counting from 216 countries. The site will soon be featured in the collection at the JFK Presidential Library and Museum. In 1969, 3 men went to the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
40 years later, millions followed in their footsteps.
The digital space, obviously, where all of us are living these days and where all the best, I think some of the best work is happening in the world. When you're doing a digital experience like this, it became very apparent to us that sound would be a key thing, because for the first time we digitized the recordings from mission control to the spacecraft. No one had ever done that before. NASA gave us a stack of typewritten transmissions, and one of our producers, Norma, took that and for the next 3 months digitized it, and what it did, it laid out basically the script for our experience, because what we were able to analyze it, listen to it, and set up the stages that we needed to set up to make this a real experience. And then we took that sound and we tweeted it out 40 years to the second. That's the first time that had ever been done before. So it became apparent that sound was the thing that was going to drive this experience from beyond just what it looked like and how it moved. When you listen to it, I remember listening to it and having it up in my home on my computer for the whole time, for the whole trip. And for the most, probably 45% of the time, all you heard was just space. All you heard was just the static between mission control and the spacecraft. But then every once in a while, someone would come in, and that human voice in the middle of the wild blue yonder was so powerful. And that became the thing that I think made it not just a scientific exploration, but a very emotional one for anyone who took it. So sound, again, especially in the digital space, kind of underrated. Don't forget it. It's really, really important.
Don't thank me. Thank the savings.
You can't skip this Geico ad because it's already over. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
I don't know why, I just had to show that. I mean, the sound is the sound, but I mean, I think it's a good example of just letting the camera roll and not interfering with it, and just letting the dog's actions speak louder than any words you could ever have. Pretty amazing. So quickly about radio, I know I have a couple more minutes, but I want to make sure I talk about radio because obviously sound is huge when it comes to radio. I'm going to play 3 spots. You'll see that each one of them has a unique way into radio, which I think, to me, I've always called it the theater of the mind. It's all your ears trying to connect with your brain and connect with your heart. Radio, there's a great quote, life is hard, radio is harder. I think that's really true. I think to really do great radio, you really have to get beyond the obvious. And I think these 3 spots do that. This is for the UCI, which was here last year, if you remember.
Dear Mother, I write to inform you that I have at last reached the confines of Richmond. The journey was almost more than your poor daughter could endure. But I did summon all my strength, braving the mediocre airplane food and 2-hour-long layover. Now here in the River City, oh Mother, such stirring scenes have I witnessed. Men and women on bicycles engaged in mile after mile of sweat-laden misery. Why did the riders do it? But alas, I do know. 'Tis for glory, the chance to have one's accomplishments echo across the Twittersphere, blogosphere, and all the other media spheres. The next time I attend my weekly spin class, I will pedal all the harder, knowing the sacrifice of these brave souls. Your ever-devoted daughter, Betsy Burgess.
A new battle has come to Richmond, Virginia. The 2015 Road World Cycling Championships, September 19th through 27th.
Paula Sela is a real Geico customer, not an actor. So to help tell her story, we hired that announcer guy from the movies.
When the storm hit, both our cars were totally underwater.
In a world where both of our cars were totally underwater,
We thought it would take forever to get some help.
but a new wind was about to blow.
With Geico, we had our check in 2 days.
Payback. This time, it's for real.
Geico. Real service, real savings.
Cozy Shack tapioca pudding is made with simple ingredients like milk, eggs, and sugar. It's so absurdly delicious, it's causing a buying frenzy, resulting in a pudding shortage. So to make sure we don't run out, we wrote the world's worst jingle.
Take some Cozy Shack tapioca pudding out of the refrigerator. Stick a spoon in it. Put it in your mouth. Chew on some of the big round tapioca things in there. Wipe your face with a napkin.
Please remain calm. We're doing everything we can to ensure there is enough Cozy Shack tapioca pudding for all. Cozy Shack pudding, absurdly delicious.
One last thing about Facebook. All you guys know that Facebook doesn't like sound. Great. So you've had to adapt to that. And so we're creating a lot of content for Facebook, obviously, and most of it doesn't have sound. I'm going to show you one quick video we did. Geico did a commercial with raccoons sifting through the trash. You guys have seen that. We created a campaign online called Rat Cookin', where the raccoons cook little recipes, like Facebook recipes that you see. And I'm going to show one of those. I think it's pretty fun. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. That was fun.